Welcome in, y'all. We are halfway through this NFL season, so I figured what better time than now to do a midseason Super Bowl prediction and the playoff standings. These are the records I have. I went through every remaining game, so keep in mind the record is often based off the schedule. Sometimes people try to like separate those, be like, this team should have a better record. It's like, we'll go look at their schedule. Now, there are some flaws with doing this. A big one, for example, I mean, I have Washington going 3-14. I don't even know how that happened. I mean, they're going to be pretty bad without Jaden Daniels, but they're not going to lose out. There's a lot of stuff like that, and it's really tough when doing these, especially to predict upsets. So the records aren't perfect, but they're a general picture of what I think the playoff picture could look like heading into the playoffs. Some things of note, Buffalo and Philly getting those 1 seeds. Indy and Denver tying for the 1 seed, but just falling short. And the Rams and Seahawks also tying with the Eagles for the 1 seed, but Seahawks actually ending up on the road for the first round of the playoffs. So tough luck there. So, also New England. New England, same thing, 13-4 on the road, first round of the playoffs. Now, New England, I saw 13-4, and I was like, whoa. And then I went back and looked at their schedule, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty easy. This is crazy. So good for them. 13 might be a little high, but I mean, with that schedule, man, it's possible. So let's go ahead and jump into the playoff games themselves. So we're going to start top left AFC and work our way around. You got the Chargers visiting the Colts. This is a game Indy went into LA earlier this year and dominated. Now, regular season game does not always mean what's going to happen in the playoffs. In fact, often it's quite different. But I think the Chargers are a bit more beat up. The Colts are all in. They're very well-rounded, and they played very well against this Chargers team. They matched up well. I think the Colts at home can get it done. It would be very sad to see Indy not even win a playoff game this year. I'm rooting for them. I like to see teams that weren't supposed to do good doing pretty good. Then you see Kansas City at Denver. And, this is a tough one because picking against Kansas City in the playoffs, much less in the wild card round, is really tough to do because obviously they don't lose many playoff games. But if they're on the road in Denver, if Denver's at this point, if they did win the division, that would assume that their offense picks up a little bit. So with that being said, I'm going to go with Denver, and I feel horrible about it. I don't feel great about it. I feel like it was like with Brady and the Patriots. It's like picking against the Chiefs early in the playoffs feels just like you're setting yourself up to look bad in the future, but we'll see. And again, another thing I want to reiterate, because I'm crazy, I love doing these all the time. I think I do one just about every week. I don't post them, and it changes all the time what I have in it. It's often just a regular season game or two that really flips around the playoff seeding, and then the playoff seeding really determines how the conference championships and Super Bowl look. So, if your team doesn't make it very far, I wouldn't take it too personally, and there's a good chance I had them winning it all in one of my other ones just, a couple of days ago. I think it could be all over. It's more just kind of analyzing, the possibilities here. New England at Baltimore. Baltimore would be really hot if they did make the playoffs. I think they will. They're good enough, but they can't fall, more than 1 or 2 times down the stretch. But Steelers, I don't trust them, and they have a pretty tough schedule. New England, they can stop the run well. I think when you can stop the run against Baltimore, it sets you up for success. I think Drake May's playing out of his mind. I think the Patriots can go on the road here and get a win in Baltimore. Vrabel's a great coach. I love him too, and I think they're set up for it. Then we move on to Detroit visiting the Rams. I think Detroit has just showed more weakness this year than years past. I know they're dinged up, of course. Again, a lot of this sometimes comes down to injuries. Rams are fairly healthy at this point. They've looked great this year. The Rams have. Really, their only loss is kind of weird games, with the blocked field goal against Philly and then whatever the heck happening in San Fran. I'm going to take the Rams here. I think they'll be prepared in this one. I think they'll get it done and move on to the next round, getting that game in LA. San Fran visiting Green Bay. San Fran has won this game a lot in the playoffs. I think Shanahan could absolutely coach his way to a win here. I just think with all the injuries and even their roster coming into the season, I don't know that the Niners are good enough to go in there and win. Green Bay, as they've shown against Carolina, against Cleveland, they have their off days. If San Fran catches them on an off day, it's Niners all day. But I'm not going to count on that. Green Bay is a very, very good roster, more talented than San Fran's at least, and it's hard to pick against them in the spot. So I'll go Pack to win that one. Seattle at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay won this game earlier this year. It was a shootout in Seattle. Both teams banged up. Tampa Bay a bit more so now. Seattle should be a bit healthier. They're going to get some guys back. And, I don't want to go too crazy on Seattle. This is a team, they've looked super dominant. They've looked great, one of the best teams in the league. But at the same time, their best win is against a below or slightly above average Pittsburgh Steelers team. So, I want to see a bit more, but I will take them to win this game. I think they're absolutely good enough. When you have a defense that good, and you got, JSN, the receiver, doing that great, I think they can win a lot of games in a lot of spots. I think they can go into Tampa Bay and get it done. I like Tampa Bay. I just think they're a bit too injured and just a step behind. So we'll see there. Then we'll move on to the divisional round. New England at Buffalo. Man, New England did it earlier this year, right? New England went into Buffalo on a Sunday night and got a win. And they have to do it again. That's a tall task. That's not an easy thing to do. And, Drake May's a young quarterback. I think Bills would be more prepared this time around. I want to pick the Patriots. I really do. I'm rooting for them. I'm rooting for May as much as I want to. I'm going to have to go Buffalo here. I know they've already done it. They've gone into Buffalo and won. But it's a tough thing to do a couple times in a row. But they very well could. It's not like I'd be surprised. I think New England's a very good team this year. So, wouldn't be surprised. But I'm going to take Buffalo there. I think they can get it done. Then we're going to go Denver at Indianapolis here. This was a game that was played earlier this year, and it was a higher scoring game, and Indy won off a last-second field goal. You had that leverage call that got them a second chance on the field goal, and this one would be a lot of fun. I think it would be a tight, very close game. I think my big thing right now, Broncos fans hate it. They're finding ways to win. I understand, so is Indy, but the offense hasn't looked good enough for me to have Denver in the AFC Championship game yet. The defense has looked unbelievably elite. They've shown flashes on offense. I love Sean Payton, a very proven coach. His playoff success in the past, he has a Super Bowl. This team could absolutely win the Super Bowl. But right now, I want to see a bit more. Right now, I like the way the Colts are playing better. Give me Indianapolis at home. Flip on over to the other side. You have Seattle at Philly. And Philly's the tough call here. So a couple things. Seattle, Sam Darnold last year looked like an MVP candidate. The Vikings were elite. I think they had a better team than Seattle has now, maybe, especially on offense. They were just cruising. And then, the playoffs came around. They got to Darnold. He folded. He looked horrible. He saw ghosts, and they lost. He seems different this year. It does. He seems more confident. He seems better, but he hasn't faced adversity like that, hasn't faced a tough team. But this Seattle team looks great. It's hard to pick against them right now. But then on the flip side, you have Philly, who they've gone through spurts this year where the offense is really, really questionable. I don't know how much I trust this offense, especially against a very good Seattle defense. And this really comes down to, do I trust Darnold in this spot? Because I think the Seattle defense can shut down the Eagles. The Eagles' offense has been pretty rough this year. And, I'm going to go out on a limb in this one. I'm going to take Seattle. Philly's just looked rough. They've won some games they shouldn't have. They've also won some very nice games. They've had some great wins. Maybe part of this is just because I hate picking repeat winners, So maybe it's just a little bit of bias there. But I think Seattle absolutely has a chance. And maybe this looks horrible in a couple weeks when Seattle plays some really tough teams and if they crash and burn or something. But right now they look really good. I'll take them in a narrow road victory there. Green Bay at the Rams. This is one. I mean, the Rams have been far more consistent this season. They've looked very, very good in their wins. They've won 2 dominant games in a row. And their losses, the loss to Philly, the blocked field goals, they lost, right? But that's not something. Well, actually, I mean, it actually has been happening a lot. I was going to say that's not something happens too often. They've been getting a lot of kicks blocked. They got to fix that. They still have half a season to do so. Green Bay has just looked so hot and cold, shaky, especially offensively. I don't trust Jordan Love. I'm going to go with the Rams here. Stafford and McVay is much more trustworthy right now than whatever the Packers got going on. But the Packers roster-wise could make an argument for best roster in the NFL. It's very, very good. Again, another team. I think, like, I'm seriously looking here to pause for a second at all 14 teams I have in the playoffs. I think you could convince me any of them could win the Super Bowl. I know you're like, yeah, they're in the playoffs, of course, but last year when the playoffs started, the Steelers, right? No, they weren't going to win the Super Bowl. The Broncos, great story. Bo Nix, it was too early. They weren't going to win the Super Bowl. Like there's usually some teams in there. It's like, yeah, this is fun, but it's when will they go out, not how far can they go. You really look at this. I think any of these teams could win it all. The teams that I am the most cautious for are maybe LA with the injuries, the Chargers, and then maybe San Fran, just, again, those defensive injuries, they've been weakened there, but great coaching for both those teams, I think, can overcome it, so you never know. So with that being said, though, let's move on to the 4 teams we do have remaining. Indianapolis, at Buffalo, AFC title game. Buffalo, this would be really nice if they were to get it at home. If they could get at home in that dome, avoid going into the elements of Buffalo in January. That is rough. This Colts team is very well-rounded. They look great. But, in Buffalo, I have to go with the Bills here. I have to go with the Bills. More proven playoff success with them. The home field advantage, Josh Allen versus Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has looked great, but again, when the going gets tough, are we going to be able to trust him in these moments? I'm rooting for Indy. I hope they do well, but I'm going to go with Buffalo here. And then Seattle at the Rams in the NFC Championship game. One I would not have seen coming to start the season, that's for sure. This would be a lot of fun. You get an NFC West kind of rivalry here. It's been a minute since these two teams have been good at the same time, and this one would be a lot of fun. You get Sam Darnold going against the team that knocked him out in the playoffs last year. And you got the Rams, Stafford looking to grab a second ring with McVay. At the end of the day, the thing that concerns me the most, it's the same thing that happened in the playoffs last year, right? The Rams pass rush is very, very good. And I really do think they can get to Darnold like they did last year. And if they do that, I just don't know how far Seattle can take them. I trust McVay to be able to scheme something up against this Seattle team. I think the Rams win this. I think it's close, though. I think it's a lower scoring, close game, maybe 23-20, something like that. But I think it'd be a blast. It could be an instant classic. That would be a super, super fun game there. I'm going to go with the Rams, though. Then we have our Super Bowl, Buffalo and the Rams. These are two teams I feel like I often come back to. Two teams I like what they got going. On the Buffalo side, I love Josh Allen, right? I think he's just amazing. I think he elevates this team to a whole nother level. And on top of that, the roster is great, right? You can't overlook that roster. It's amazing. And if they take advantage of this easy schedule and get that home field, they're by far the favorite in my eyes to go to the Super Bowl. Then on the flip side, the Rams, what I like about them is, you got McVay and Stafford. You obviously got other playmakers. You got Puka, you got Verse, you got Devontae Adams, but it's McVay and Stafford. When come playoff time, they're tough to beat, right? We've seen it in the past. They've won some playoff games that they maybe shouldn't have. They've been in some ones. They've done very, very well. They're hard to pick against in the playoffs, and this is a very tough Super Bowl to pick, right? Which one wins out? This one would be in Santa Clara, San Francisco essentially, which would probably make it a pretty heavy home game for the Bills. I'm sure all the Niners fans unfriendly towards the Rams there. It's a tough one to pick, and it really could go either way. We remember last season these two teams played. I think the final score was 48-45. The Rams won that one. Man, I'm gonna go Buffalo here. I'm going to go Buffalo to win the Super Bowl. But again, it could go either way. I think right now they're the team I feel best about, and I think the biggest reason that is the way they can set themselves up for the postseason. Their easy schedule that's remaining. If you could get that top seed in a conference that is weaker, AFC still has a lot of strong teams, but it's a little weaker in the NFC. You get that one seed, I think they can walk to it. I'm just a bit more confident with them getting there. So let me know what y'all think. Who are your Super Bowl predictions? Who's in your conference title games? And, we still got half season left. I'm sure it'll change a lot, but, I'd love to hear and looking forward to another great half season of football.